owner of a bankrupt restaurant, lets homeless people stay in his restaurant. But when he returns after a few days... Dear viewers, welcome to our channel. Subscribe to receive more stories every day. Daniel Moore had it all: an upscale fusion restaurant, a devoted clientele, and a reputation as one of the city's top culinary artists. His establishment, Gourmet Oasis, was the place to be, attracting food lovers from all over who craved his unique Mediterranean Latin dishes. With its cozy atmosphere and flawless service, Gourmet Oasis had become a cherished landmark, a destination where people came not just to dine, but to immerse themselves in a remarkable culinary experience. However, Daniel was unaware that his trusted head chef, Colin, was secretly plotting against him. The trouble began about a year earlier when a new fast-casual poke bowl spot, Poke Paradise, opened just down the street from Gourmet Oasis. Suddenly, the once loyal patrons who had flocked to Daniel's restaurant were drawn away, tempted by the allure of quick, healthy meals. Daniel hoped it was just a passing trend, believing that his customers would soon return to the exceptional quality and creativity of his cuisine. But as business continued to decline, he realized that something far more sinister was occurring. The truth finally emerged when Daniel discovered that Colin, a talented chef, had been scheming to undermine the restaurant. Colin had been planning to leave and join a rival restaurant, but to secure his new job, he was instructed to systematically ruin Gourmet Oasis's reputation. Colin was envious of the accolades Daniel received and craved the spotlight for himself, even if it meant destroying everything Daniel had worked so hard to build. Colin's sabotage began subtly. He introduced overly exotic ingredients to the menu that didn't appeal to the regular clientele. Gradually, the once celebrated dishes lost their charm. Customers started to complain about the odd flavors, and rumors spread that Gourmet Oasis was no longer the go-to spot for fine dining. Colin didn't stop there. He also sabotaged the restaurant's operations by scheduling insufficient staff and creating chaos in the kitchen. Meals were delayed, and the once exemplary service became disorganized and sloppy. Frustrated customers abandoned the restaurant, opting instead for the reliable and quick options at Poke Paradise. By the time Daniel uncovered the betrayal and fired Colin, the damage was already extensive. The restaurant's once loyal patrons had disappeared, and Daniel found himself drowning in debt. Desperate to save his dream, he made the heartbreaking decision to sell the property. As Daniel walked through the now-empty dining room, the silence was deafening, and he felt a profound sense of loss. This restaurant had been his passion, his life's work, and now it was all slipping away. With a heavy heart, Daniel headed to the back alley to lock up for the last time. As he stepped outside, he noticed movement in the shadows near the bushes. Cautiously, he approached and found a woman and a young girl huddled there, clearly in distress. The woman, named Rebecca, quickly apologized, explaining that she and her 5-year-old daughter, Chloe, had been using the alley as a temporary shelter. They had been receiving leftover food from the waitstaff, but now that the restaurant was closing, they had nowhere else to go. Daniel's heart sank as he realized their dire situation, and in that moment, he saw a reflection of his own struggles. Moved by their plight, Daniel made a spontaneous offer. "Stay here," he said, "and you can help me clean up the place in exchange for food and shelter." Rebecca's eyes widened in disbelief. "Are you serious?" she asked, holding Chloe close. "We don't want to be a burden. We can find somewhere else." Daniel raised a hand to stop her. "Please," he said gently but firmly. "You and your daughter need a safe place, and I could use the help getting this place in order before I..." His voice trailed off, the pain of selling the restaurant still fresh in his mind. Rebecca studied his face, searching for any sign of a hidden agenda, but all she saw was genuine compassion. Slowly, she nodded, a tentative smile forming on her lips. "Thank you," she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. "You have no idea how much this means to us." Rebecca and Chloe moved into the quiet, empty restaurant, throwing themselves into the task of cleaning and organizing. Daniel was amazed at their dedication. Rebecca's meticulous attention to detail and Chloe's infectious energy breathed new life into the once neglected dining room. Over the next few days, Daniel visited frequently, growing more and more drawn into Rebecca and Chloe's world. He learned that Rebecca had been a regular at Gourmet Oasis years ago, back when she was newly married to a man named Mark. But after a failed business venture, Mark had abandoned them, leaving Rebecca and her daughter destitute. As Rebecca shared her story, Daniel felt a deep empathy. He knew all too well the pain of seeing everything you've built crumble, and the resilience in Rebecca's eyes, the way she refused to let her circumstances define her, only deepened his admiration. One afternoon, as they shared a meal Rebecca had expertly prepared, Daniel made an impulsive suggestion. "When I reopen this place," he said, "I want you to be the chef." Rebecca looked at him in shock. You can't be serious," she stammered. I'm just a..." Daniel cut her off. "I've tasted your cooking, Rebecca," he said, his gaze steady. "It's extraordinary, and I believe together we can make this place better than it's ever been." For a moment, Rebecca was speechless. Then a smile slowly spread across her face, and she nodded, her eyes shining with hope. "Okay," she whispered. "Let's do it." On the day the prospective buyers were scheduled to visit, Daniel felt a mix of nerves and excitement. This was his last chance to save his beloved restaurant, and he was determined to make it work. As the investors arrived, Daniel showcased Rebecca's culinary talents, confident that her dishes would win them over. He was right. The investors were impressed, praising the depth of flavor and artistic presentation of the food. Daniel watched with growing optimism as they sampled dish after dish, their initial skepticism giving way to genuine delight. But then, to Daniel's shock, one of the investors turned out to be Rebecca's ex-husband, Mark. He immediately recognized Rebecca and Chloe, and his face twisted with a mix of shock and anger. "What the hell is this?" Mark shouted, his voice echoing through the dining room. "Rebecca, get over here and bring that girl with you." Rebecca froze, fear paralyzing her. Chloe, sensing her mother's distress, clung tightly to her. Furious, Daniel stepped in front of them, shielding them from Mark. "I'm going to have to ask you to leave," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "This is my restaurant, and I won't tolerate any kind of abuse." But Mark wasn't backing down. "Oh, I'm not going anywhere," he sneered. "In fact, I'm here to make you an offer you can't refuse. This place is a gold mine, and I want in." Daniel's anger flared. "I think you're forgetting something," he said coldly. "This is my restaurant, and I don't deal with people who threaten my staff." Mark laughed bitterly. "Your staff? That woman is my wife, and that girl is my daughter. I have every right to be here." Daniel's eyes narrowed as he realized just how despicable Mark was. "Rebecca is no longer your wife," he said firmly, "and Chloe is no longer your daughter." Turning to the investors, Daniel addressed them directly. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "I'm afraid I can no longer consider any offers from this man." He pointed to Mark, his disdain evident. "This man has a history of abandoning his family, leaving them homeless and destitute, and I won't allow him to be a part of this restaurant or near the people I care about." The investors exchanged uncertain glances, unsure of how to proceed. But then one of them, a respected businessman named Henry Morgan, stepped forward. "Well, Mr. Moore," he said, his tone calm, "it seems you have quite a situation here. But if what you say is true, I'm inclined to believe you. And I must say, the food your chef prepared is exceptional. I'd be honored to invest in your restaurant, on one condition." Daniel felt a glimmer of hope. "What's the condition, Mr. Morgan?" Morgan glanced at Rebecca and Chloe, a warm smile on his face. "I want this family to remain a vital part of the team. Their contribution is clearly indispensable, and I wouldn't have it any other way." Gratitude surged through Daniel, and he nodded firmly. "Agreed," he said, shaking Morgan's hand. "Thank you, sir. This means everything to me and to them." With that, Daniel turned to Mark, his expression hard. "As for you," he said, his voice firm, "I suggest you leave now. And if I ever see you near this place or these people again, I'll have you arrested." Mark started to protest, but the look in Daniel's eyes told him it would be pointless. Muttering curses under his breath, he stormed out, his dreams of profiting from the restaurant shattered. 3 months later, the restaurant had undergone a remarkable transformation. The dining area was renovated with warm, inviting colors and elegant, modern furnishings. creating a cozy yet sophisticated atmosphere. The kitchen, however, was the true highlight, a state-of-the-art space designed to bring out the best in Rebecca's culinary skills. On the night of the grand reopening, the restaurant was packed with eager diners, ready to experience the new and improved Gourmet oasis. As Daniel observed the bustling scene, a deep sense of pride and relief washed over him. Against all odds, he had saved his dream, and he owed it all to the incredible woman who now led his kitchen. Rebecca, with her sleeves rolled up and a determined glint in her eye, commanded the kitchen with authority. The energy was electric, and the aromas wafting into the dining room were enough to make even the most discerning foodie's mouth water. As the night wore on, Daniel couldn't help but steal glances at Rebecca, amazed by the way she had not only revived the restaurant, but also transformed his life. She had gone from a desperate, homeless woman to the driving force behind Gourmet Oasis's revival, and Daniel couldn't help but feel a deep admiration and affection for her. When the last dish was served and the final guest had left, Daniel found Rebecca in the empty dining room, her eyes reflecting a mixture of exhaustion and pride. Wordlessly, he approached her, his heart pounding. "Rebecca," he said softly, his voice filled with emotion, "I don't know how to thank you for what you've done. This place, it's alive again, and it's all because of you." Rebecca blushed as she met his gaze. "I couldn't have done it without you, Daniel," she murmured. "You gave me a chance when I had nothing left. You believed in me." Daniel gently took her hands in his. "That's because you're extraordinary, Rebecca," he said, his voice sincere. "From the moment I found you in that alley, I knew you were special. And now, watching you lead this kitchen with such passion and skill," he paused, taking a deep breath. "I don't want to lose you, Rebecca. Not ever." Rebecca's breath caught as she understood the depth of his words. "Daniel, what are you saying?" she whispered. In response, Daniel dropped to one knee, never breaking eye contact. "Rebecca," he said, his voice trembling, "will you marry me?" For a moment, time seemed to stand still. Rebecca stared at him, her heart racing, hardly daring to believe what was happening. Tears filled her eyes as she nodded, a radiant smile lighting up her face. "Yes," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Yes, Daniel, I will marry you." Daniel exhaled, relief washing over him, and in one swift movement, he stood and pulled Rebecca into his arms, twirling her around the empty dining room. Their laughter echoed through the space, filling the restaurant with joy. As they embraced, Daniel knew this was more than just the reopening of Gourmet Oasis. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with love, hope, and the promise of a future brighter than they could have ever imagined. Dear viewers, thank you for watching. If you like this story, please subscribe to our channel to receive more stories every day. Share with us what you think of this story.